All right, so who really built the internet? If I ask you that, chances are one name pops into your head, right? Tim Berners-Lee. And look, you're not wrong. The guy's a legend, famous for inventing the World Wide Web. But is that the whole story? Not even close.
Someone in an online forum put it perfectly. They said it seems like every few years, this whole Tim Berners-Lee invented the web thing just comes roaring back. And it's true. It's the story we all know, but it's leaving out this massive, maybe even more important piece of the puzzle.
And that brings up a pretty provocative question, doesn't it? I mean, the web is everything to us. It's how we see and touch and use the internet every single day. But was it actually the biggest, most important invention of the internet age? Let's dig in a little deeper. Okay, the best way to wrap your head around this is with an analogy. Picture a giant iceberg. The World Wide Web, that's the part sticking out of the water. It's what everyone sees, what everyone talks about. But we all know the deal with icebergs, right? The vast majority of it, the real power and weight, is totally invisible, deep down under the surface. So this diagram here, it's kind of like the technical blueprint of our iceberg. It's called a protocol stack. And yeah, I know, lots of acronyms, don't sweat it. The only thing you need to see is that the web, the thing we use, is just that little layer right at the very top. Everything it does, everything, depends on this huge stack of invisible tech holding it up from below. And that top layer, that's HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You see it all the time, right? At the start of a web address. Think of it as the special language of the web. It's the set of rules that lets your browser ask a server, hey, can I see that website? And have the server send it back so you can see it. That is Tim Berners-Lee's masterpiece. Okay, now we go one layer deeper, under the surface. We hit something called TCP, or Transmission Control Protocol. This is the internet's super reliable messenger service. The internet itself is, well, it's chaos. Data packets can get lost, they can show up in the wrong order. TCP is the hero that steps in and says, don't worry, I got this. It makes sure every single piece of that email or that video you're streaming arrives perfectly and in the right order. It's the reason things aren't just a garbled mess. And then, at the very bottom, the bedrock of the whole thing, you have IP, the Internet Protocol. If TCP is the reliable messenger, IP is the global postal service. It's the postman. It takes every little packet of data, slaps an address on it, and says, okay, you need to go from this computer in Ohio to a server in Japan. It's the thing that actually navigates the entire mind-bogglingly complex network. So let's put it side by side, because this is the real kicker. The web, it's amazing at displaying stuff. Someone called it a really powerful phone book, and that's a great way to think about it. But TCP/IP, that's the thing that makes sure the information gets there at all. It's not the phone book. It's the entire global telephone network. Without the network, the phone book is just a useless book. So, that's the big question, isn't it? If Tim Berners-Lee built the shiny thing on top that we all see and use, who on earth built the foundation? Who were the architects of this invisible, absolutely essential system that the entire modern world now runs on? Well, meet the unsung architects. Their names are Vint Cerf and Kahn, and no, they're not exactly household names like Berners-Lee, but what they did, it was monumental. We're talking way back in the 1970s, they are the ones who designed TCP/IP. They literally wrote the rules for how the internet operates. And here's where it gets truly wild. The absolute genius of TCP/IP, what makes it one of the greatest engineering feats in human history, is that it works without anyone being in charge. Think about that. There is no central internet headquarters, no master switch, no single company or government controlling the flow of traffic. It's a massive, global, decentralized system that just works. So you're probably asking, how is that even possible? Well, the idea behind it is actually beautiful in its simplicity. When you send an email, it doesn't go as one big chunk. It gets chopped up into thousands of little pieces, called packets. Each packet is then sent out into the network to find its own way. Every router it bumps into makes a tiny, simple decision about where to send it next. And then at the destination, TCP is waiting there like a puzzle master to put all the pieces back together in the right order. Brilliant. Yeah, this diagram might look a little intimidating, but the logic at its core is so simple. Every single router in the world is basically just asking one question over and over again for every packet it sees. Hey, is this for someone on my little local street, or do I need to send it up to the main highway? That's it. That one simple decision, repeated billions of times a second by millions of routers, is what makes the whole thing go. So let's tie this all together. The conclusion is pretty clear, right? The World Wide Web, this incredible, world-changing thing that Tim Berners-Lee gave us, it literally could not function without the invisible foundation, the plumbing, of TCP/IP that Vint, Cerf, and Kahn built decades earlier. Someone online summed it up perfectly with a classic quote: "It all boils down to standing on the shoulders of giants." Tim Berners-Lee's work was absolutely genius, but he was able to be a genius because he had this gigantic, stable foundation to stand on.
So why aren't Vint Cerf and Kahn household names? Well, that same person had a great explanation for that too. They said, quote, "It's still the first one to see the ocean that gets the credit." And that just hits the nail on the head. The web is the ocean. It's the thing we can finally see and experience. It made the internet tangible for normal people. And so naturally, that's where all the credit goes.
And that just leaves me with one last question for you to chew on. We've just pulled back the curtain on the invisible foundation of the internet. So what other invisible giants are out there holding up your world? What other essential, foundational things are we all using every single day without ever even knowing they exist?